back and forth to you guys, so feel free. So my first question for the panel is this. In a lot of ways, you guys have all alluded to, what inspires you, the work that you do, but in the end, the theme that I hear most coming out, and I think, Holden, you spelled it out, you said, just do it. All of you guys are just doing it. So can you share with us, what that looks like and what some of the immediate obstacles in just doing is? So, you've all decided to do something, whether it's, working with the global diaspora, the youth work that you hope to do, the entrepreneur stuff. What does just do it look like for folks or young people who want to follow steps, who have ideas? And anyone can answer.
For me, just do it. Okay. How I would see it is you could just do it, but I'd rather have a plan. For me, that's how it goes. I'd rather have a plan, and then I just do that plan. So the first thing for me in my personal life, what I decided to do is further my education, which was very important, which is something that youth should think about more often. Furthering your education, the more you learn, the more doors open for you. So once you have that done, then just do it, because you have to have that backup for me.
And I think what I add on that is, the first obstacle that you have to overcome is like Hodder said, is believing in yourself. Is basically believing in yourself. And I'll tell you one example. When I first started the first mental health hospital that was set up in Somalia in Mogadishu, we had no plan. We just wanted to do it. We knew why we have to do it, because the mental health services is needed, but we had no plan, we had no confidence, and we never done it before. So a few of us got together and start the project. And obviously, that was the first time, so we will go around and talk to people and talk to them about why we're doing it and the things that we want to do. And believe it or not, everybody used to say to us, this is impossible. You don't do those sort of things. The government only government can do this, so don't bother. And then along the way, some of the group left and said, okay, I'm not going to try. I'm just going to do other things that I know. But I was one of those who actually, even though I had some doubts about myself and I had doubts of whether I can do it, I actually just say, what is the worst things that can happen? The worst things that can happen if you try to do something that you have not done before is you learn something from it, right? So I think you have to try to do it, and with a plan, later on you obviously become a bit more experienced and you learn to develop strategies. You become a bit more self-confidence, but I think the first things you have to do is obviously thinking about outside the box. You want to do something that nobody has done. It is always difficult, let's be honest. I think with Holland it's always difficult, and unless you do it, you will not learn it. So just try to do, but obviously you have to know what you want to do, why you're doing it, and you have to have a passion for it. Those are the key. But ultimately, once you have done that, I think it gets easier. And then you can try out a bigger stuff. I want to add one thing. All of us, obviously, start from our family. We know that some people are more negative than others. So just one piece of advice is stay away from people who are likely to discourage you. Yeah. And we know there are people in each family and each community who would likely say to you, don't do it. It's just stay at the comfort zone. So as much as you can avoid those people who will discourage you.
Okay, so here's a question that's coming in from the audience, and it's specific to rebuilding an organization or restarting when your business hasn't gone right. How do you rebuild an organization? What are the steps would you suggest taking in rebuilding an organization that's been running for a long time and maybe has met some hard times? And where would you start?
Okay, first of all, it really depends on what kind of organization you're running. If you're running a nonprofit or if you're running a for-profit, this is what I would do if something was failing, it wasn't going good. The first thing you do is look at the product that you're offering. What is the service that you're offering to people? That's the number one thing. There's something, if your business isn't going right, there's a few things you can look at. The first thing is the product that you're offering probably isn't a really good product. No matter how much you try to market something, if a product is bad, you can't sell it to people. The second thing is that I would look at your target audience. Who are you selling to? Perhaps you're not actually selling it to them the right way, or perhaps there's a product market fit issue where you're not selling the right product to the right people. And the third thing is look at your team. Are these the right people to be working with you? Do they have the right skill sets, and are they able to execute? I guarantee you, if you're having a failing business, your problem is in probably one of those three areas. And if I don't know who this person is, please come and talk to me, because you probably have a personalized issue and we can work through it.
I think obviously we don't know what sort of organization the question is about, but what I would say is actually it's easier to rebuild organization than to start new organization, because you can learn. Basically, the first things you need to ask yourself is were there mistakes made? You know, why the organization or the businesses is not going well, and then from that you can actually make the changes that are needed. So my point is, it's actually really more difficult to start a new organization that nobody knows about. You have the organization, you have the branding, you have the name, and obviously you have the tools, because if you have the organization, obviously you might have the office, you have staff, you have website, you have those basic tools. So it's easy to learn from the mistakes that were made.
Well, for me, I would say, like I said, adapt. One thing I've noticed is when it comes to me personally, if I take on a project and it doesn't go well, usually it's either I've lost passion for it, or first I didn't have the passion for it to begin with, and I realized that at the end, or that I met the limitation and I gave up. So the best thing for you to do when you get to that point is you adapt, you change path. That's it. Step back, think at the big picture, and reorganize yourself, rethink, and go on from there.
So this is a really, really good question. And as someone who's worked with youth for many, many years and have younger siblings growing up and also grew up in Canada, I've seen this quite a bit. I might even played in this when I was growing up. So the question here says, young people are often living double lives. One way at home and another way at school or outside in their community. What roles can parents play to help their children live healthy lifestyles? I'll give this to the mother on the panel.
Well, this is actually something that I'm very passionate about, because I've looked a lot into youth group, like the youth, Somali youth especially, but youth in general. Why are we having such hard time adapting into the Canadian society? Because we are actually now, we've been here for 20 years, so it's almost at the third generation, I would say. So the first generation is our parents who came here. The parents who came here, they have their identity always set. They're Somalis, and that's who they're going to stay. The second generation, those who are born here, those are the ones who had the most crisis, I think, because they don't know where they belong. Are they Somalis? Are they Canadian? What are they? So it's like a tug of war for them. And what happened is, I realized is that the parents who are Somalis, they don't sometimes have the tools, or they don't know how to adapt to Canadian life, Canadian society. So those children, instead of having an active life in the Canadian way, for example, what I do with my son now that I've learned, I encourage him go ski, like put him in activities that keep him busy and everything like that. And also make sure that he's not just sitting at home watching TV or going out into the neighborhood just playing outside. Just make sure he's always busy and educate and teach him. Treat him like an adult himself. Not none of that. Always be active and always make him think like he's an adult. Once you do that, they're gonna foster themselves, their own identity, and there's gonna be strong. And once that identity is strong, then there's no crisis. So inshallah, just be careful with the whole thing of, because we lost the whole generation to that. And we have to be very careful about that.
I was an entrepreneur is I used to hide it from my family. I was ostracized because nobody understood me. And so for a very long time, I was always in the figuring it out stage when actually I had already figured it out, but nobody could understand me. So I expended so much energy trying to tell people. The mistake that I made was trying to convince other people of my validity, especially my family. So if you are a family member or a brother or sister and you have somebody in your family who's kind of going, encourage them, really just encourage them, make them feel normal, ask them about what they're doing. Don't make any aspect of their identity a taboo. That's what I would say. I wish somebody would have just asked me what I was doing and like listened to me, you know?
Okay. This question used to come up quite often when I was a social worker. If I remember, there was a case where the family or the mom or the dad likely to be denial about where they are, and they will want the children to think as they used to as a kids. And I think that is the key problem. But I think the communication is the key. You know, there's no problem, there's no conflict between citizen of Canadian but also Somali. They can be both, and they can learn and understand both identity and both cultures. There's nothing wrong with that. But obviously, what we need is we want to encourage a communication between the children and the parents. The children must be able to talk to their mom and dad about the stages and the changes that they're going through. And I hate to say this, but we often don't want to have the difficult conversation, you know, and the children are going through, a lot of things are going through their mind, and they've been exposed to a lot of things that perhaps the dad and mom were not exposed to, and they cannot have the conversation, that openness with the mom and dad. I think that is the difficulties. So we need to encourage parents to be more open, to understand where the children are coming from, to empathize with children where they're coming from, and also to accept the children are not children who are in Somalia, they are children in Canada or London or whatever. And I think by effective communication and openness, it will get better. And obviously the generation, the younger generation, like Kausar, and who are educated and been exposed, it will get easier.
Well done, mashallah. On to the next question. What advice would you give someone who's maybe started their pursuit of school or academics a little late, but they're now thinking of changing course? Maybe thinking of opening a business, maybe thinking of doing community development or starting an organization. So what advice would you give someone who started going into school a little late in their lives, but now thinking a different route? So who wants to take the first stab at this one?
Okay, so why does he want or she want to change the path? Why? I think that's the key, isn't it? So I used to work as a social worker, and I've done well. I was had a stable job, and then I was also a quite community activist, and I was running this global Somali diaspora organization that had no money, that had nothing at all. All I had was a communique, and I was asked to lead this organization. And obviously, what did I do? Did I leave my job? Stability, where I was really doing well, and I knew where I was going and where I was headed. I was also trained as a social worker, but I was not trained as somebody who leads the organization. And I spoke to one of my friends, and I asked him his advice. And I still remember what he told me. He told me, you know what? If you do well with this, then this can lead you to other places. But if you stay with what you're doing, you won't get that far. So my advice would be, it is the motivation. The motivation? What's motivating you is why I would advise. So if you have a right motivation and you know why you want to change it, then do so. If you're not sure, then perhaps get more advice. Okay.
The first thing I would say is education. I always encourage education. It doesn't matter what age you are. It's never too late to learn. It's always time to learn, and learning never really ends. So it doesn't matter if you take courses in the university, 1 or 2, or if you take a course load. 6 courses, continue your education, never give up on that education. But you can also follow your passion in starting something else. All it takes is organization. Just get yourself organized, sit down, plan out everything, and then once you have that, if you follow through it and you have stamina and grit, then you can achieve it, inshallah.
Thank you. We got the second mic to work, so you guys can hold on to that, alhamdulillah. Okay, so here's another question for the panel. There's a lot of challenges in Somali homes with young people feeling like they, either pursued what their passion is, but also, the sense of responsibility at home. So chores at home, helping out with mom and dad. How can young people better balance this without having to compromise one or the other?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is Jannah is under the feet of your mom. So always respect and always do what mom says, okay? Second thing is your parents are human, they love you and they want to do what's best for you. So if you're having a hard time doing what you want to do and you're passionate about, and it's conflicting with the chores at home, talk to them. Say, let's make a deal. I'll do it this day, maybe this day I won't do it. You support me. I'm sure they're going to support you. Just have communication, like our brother said here. Communication is very important, and just continue following your passion, but never give up on your passion, because you're the only one who can make yourself stop.
And all I would add is also you have to say yes to whatever that says.
Okay, so the question that the individual asked was, how do you balance your dreams and your family responsibilities? I can only really give you advice from my own experience. People who are first generation, we have so many hurdles that we have to go through and a lot of sacrifices that we have to go through. If you are doing something in your family that hasn't been done before, like you're an entrepreneur, maybe your work takes you to a lot of travel and there isn't anybody in your family who's done what you're doing, I don't know how else to say this, but to say that try your best to support your family while you're doing your dreams, because sometimes you feel like you're sacrificing your dreams for your family, but a lot of times they can't really understand what you're doing. So don't really set up this dichotomy of like it's my dreams versus them. It's not about that. It's about your dreams and making what you want happen, but also being able to support the people who are your family. So what I did at the beginning of my career is there was a lot of opportunities I gave up for my mother. A lot of events that I wanted to go to, a lot of money I spent. Like for example, my grandmother got sick and it was a really critical week. Like I wanted to go down to Miami to do an event for like Entrepreneur Magazine or something. And I had an opportunity to do like editorial, a chance to pitch at the editors. My grandmother fell sick that same week. So like, we come from a communal society, and also, instead of being individualistic, I say, okay, look, if I sacrifice for my mother in this case, maybe there's going to be height and blessings that are going to come out of this, that there's another opportunity that's going to come by. There's a lot of compromise that you have to do. A lot of other people don't face this. People who are like third culture kids don't face these types of conflicts where they have to choose one or the other, and it's something that we're going to have to overcome, especially the first generations who are going out and building careers that haven't built before. Try to sacrifice, because maybe there is blessings in that sacrifice.
MashaAllah, well said, all three of you, including the dad. Listen to that comment. Great. So the next question is directed at Kosa. Kosa, do you ever plan to become a wheelchair advocate?
Yes. One of my dreams, other than the youth that are incarcerated in Canada, is to start an organization, and I'll talk to both of you, in our countries where we give wheelchairs and access to those kind of services that those people need, because really it breaks your heart when you look at the things that they need and that they don't have. When you see a man crawling down the road in a cardboard, it's heartbreaking. We should not accept that as people. It's degrading and it's not acceptable. So that's one of my dreams, is actually to start a nonprofit organization that takes care of those people. Of course, there's a lot of things that come into that. There's road building, there's a bunch of things, but it's a long-term thing for me, and inshallah, hopefully one day we will.
And Team Awakening is always behind you, inshallah, when you get started. So the next question is a general question for everyone. So this person is a bit conflicted about what career choice to take. And their question is, how do you know what the best career choice is for you?
Well, it's hard to know, isn't it? I mean, I want to give a personal example and experience. I actually wanted to study criminology. That's what I wanted to study before I went uni or university or school. Do you call here school?
Yes.
Actually, what I wanted to do was criminology, and then I spoke to one of my teachers. He says to me, "You know what? Why don't you do social work? Because if you do criminology, you might struggle to find a job. But if you do social work," and I said, "Well, I don't really know anything about social work. So I came from Somalia. There was no such things. I never heard of social work or what they do." And obviously the only social work I heard about was the child protection social workers. And what do we think about them? Child takers, right? So and she said to me, she gave me a book to read about social work. And I read the book, and it's still, I was undecided. But she was quite persistent. She says to me, second time she called me, she says, I want to give you another book. And by the way, you can do criminology as a part of the social work course. And I just decided, I want to make her happy, basically. And only after I was the second year, that's when I realized how valuable that advice was. So I don't know about you, but sometimes I have no plan to become a social worker, but I did because somebody was advising me. So obviously the countries are different, so you have to look at the job market as well. But in the UK at that time, the social work, once you have done the social work, you could get a job straight away. So that's why she wanted me to have that. But in Canada, I don't know. Perhaps the lawyer was saying you have to go to law, so you have to. Okay, thank you. I don't know. I don't think about Canada.
One really good quote for the person who asked this question that really helped me is remembering that passions are the breadcrumbs to your dreams. So it means that you don't necessarily need to know what your end goal is. When I started a couple years ago, somebody told me you're going to be running a business consultancy, that's the last thing I really wanted to do. I really wanted to go into publishing. That was actually my dream. But the only thing that I can tell you is don't just forget about asking big questions like what is the big idea or the big picture, what is my purpose? Don't ask yourself questions like that, because questions like that are super overwhelming. Ask yourself, what is the immediate next step that I can possibly take? What is something that I'm passionate about right now, today? So what I would do is write down all the things that you're super passionate about, things that you like. It doesn't matter what it is, just write it down and then just try every single one. And then either go to somebody who's actually done that, or go try it yourself, or go do an internship, or go watch YouTube videos, or go read a book. Try to make sure you don't get your head in this big, abstract, ethereal way of thinking. Just keep your feet on the ground and just ask yourself, what's the most immediate thing that I can do right now? What is something that I'm interested in? How is the quickest way that I can go and experiment with it and see how I feel about it?
Okay, so I said we weren't going to discriminate against anyone who was above 40 and who was not able to log in to Socrative. Are there any questions for anyone in the audience? We have about 2 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we've covered everyone. Otherwise, we have a list of questions that keep coming in. Okay, so there's one question there.
Thank you. My phone was off. My question is for Abdi. For those of us that are working in healthcare and that have the skills, the mental health or the hospitals that are in Somalia, are they governed by NGOs, or is it just Somalis that are in different sectors of healthcare? PT or nurses or doctors that went there and they got like mesh pretend. Like I'm just trying to figure it out. If someone like me, if I wanted to go there for a summer or for like a year to help out, I didn't even know that existed down there.
Well, obviously, I mean, some places are run by NGOs. I know a few of mental health hospitals run by diaspora, believe it or not. The one I used to manage is Porto in Somalia, and it's actually managed by the diaspora. So it's funded and managed by the diaspora. Other one in Mogadishu, for example, I don't know if you know Dr. Habib, is managed by Dr. Habib who lives in Mogadishu. I know there's one in Port Sasso, and I think it's managed by somebody from the diaspora. So it's a big country, as you know, so it depends where you want to go. But we have to decide which city you want to go to, and then we can look into that and who manages, and we can get in touch with that city or that. But they are all different, basically. But either way, if you can go there 2 months, even if you can go there 1 week, you very much need it. That's the key. And even if you can train the nurse for a couple of days, I know some professionals, some nurses will go there and only a few days, as part of their vocation and train nurses. So you're quite welcome. Do you want to add anything on?
Is it through an agency though? I'm just trying to figure out if it's through an agency, like the ones underdeveloped countries that they have.
Okay.
All the people work over here and they just send you them, they take care of her. I know it's not obviously
No.
they take care of her.
There's no national agency in whole Somalia, so you have to approach each mental health itself, basically. But we have the information of all the mental health hospitals in Somalia, so we can share that with you.
Great, thank you. If you can, I have a list of questions. I'm only going to choose 2. If you can answer in 20 seconds or less, so we can get through it. So one of the questions is it seems like Somalis are afraid of asking other Somalis for help, whether in the corporate world or in the entrepreneurship world. How can we change this mentality?
Okay. I don't know if I was actually afraid of asking for Somalis for help, but the fact that there was a lack of Somalis that I could ask for help, in me just knowing what people were doing. Like I can imagine a lot of entrepreneurs like me who started probably around the same time that I did, but we didn't know of each other because we didn't advertise with each other, we didn't work with one another. Sorry, can you say the question again?
So, okay, it seems like Somalis are afraid of asking other Somalis for help.
Yeah.
Whether it's starting an organization in the corporate world. So I think I'm interpreting that in the corporate world, meaning somebody who's interested in a career path and knows that somebody else is in that career path but is afraid to ask. And how do you change this mentality?
Okay, I mean, just to get to that point, we need more entrepreneurs. And we need to know of one another, and we need to create more spaces where we can know more of one another and create networks. I can't reach out to people that I don't know, and because of the fact that we have lack of entrepreneurs, I'm speaking just from because I've never worked in the corporate world, because we don't have a lot of entrepreneurs and entrepreneur networks among Somalis, we don't have mentors who then bring back that critical knowledge back to our communities and go to the critical centers that we do have that are our lifeblood, like events like this, like community centers, like influencing with key community figures. So from an entrepreneurial perspective, I will say, my first point, we need to network, and we need people who are practicing entrepreneurship, who are in businesses, need to make an effort to reach out to more entrepreneurs who are of the same ethnicity, but at the same time, we need to be able to encourage more entrepreneurs to bring back that knowledge rather than becoming super successful. And we do have really successful entrepreneurs, but they're not coming back to our communities after creating their big ventures. And I don't really blame them, to be very honest, but I mean, I hope to at least me and rally around a whole bunch of other really successful people who do go off and create, multi-million-dollar ventures, inshallah, and come back to our community, make a point to go back and to support the young generation that's starting up.
Thank you. So, do you want to answer that?
Well, I actually don't recognize this. I mean, in my experience, Somalians, we ask ourselves a lot of questions. Actually, believe it or not, I've been stopped so many times people that I never met, and I've been asked all strange questions. So I think we unless Canada is different, and I don't recognize that as a problem. If that's the case in Canada, then you guys have got a lot to do. But I don't recognize. I think we do ask ourselves, and even if I'm looking for direction, I would approach the Somali first, even if that Somali perhaps doesn't know the direction. And it's not that does not mean I discriminate other people, but I just like to ask Somalis.
MashaAllah. So we'll conclude with this last question, which is, for people who want to walk away with some tangible resources to follow up, are there any books, resources that you can recommend anyone to kind of pick up and read that might continue to inspire them to just do it? I feel like a Nike commercial.
For me, when it comes to the field of law, the best thing I like to do is to get more perspective is go visit the courtrooms. Go there, sit there, and view what's going on. You will see a lot of things that will surprise you, and you can learn a lot from them. So, not just books, don't sit behind your doors and read books. Experience life. That's what I would say.
What I would like to say is I want to say all of us have to read Somali history, because remember what I said earlier, we very divided communities, and the only way you can actually get to know and understand Somali history is to read, and read not only the books that you've been recommended by your family, read every book that you can find. Then you can understand what happened in Somalia, and then you can be a better Somali citizen. You will never be free from tribalism unless you understand and read about Somali history, and unless you understand why we are where we are today. So please read about Somali history and read widely. That's my advice. Thank you.
This question is super generic, but if you are looking to be an entrepreneur, I would suggest 2 books for you. One is it's a lot, because I'm starting a business, in a Western context. As somebody who's a Muslim, who is, living under a very Islamophobic climate, who's also black, who's also a female, and I'm doing it mostly using technology. Whereas with Somali women, they're using mostly word of mouth and internal networks that they're building. So they're absolutely pioneers. And if anyone does have a suggestion, I think that's an incredible question to be asking about how do we bridge these 2 gaps. I'm going to say I don't have an answer, but I have thought about it. And there's a lot of people out there who are trying to claim these. I'll give you an example. There's in Toronto, there was the Radical Generosity Fund, and I called these women out because they had an idea and they wanted to start funding small business entrepreneurs. So their idea is we're going to collect 1,000 women who are going to give $1,000 each. And what they were saying all over the media was that we are pioneering. And we're a radical fund in the sense that we're doing something that hasn't been done before. They're not realizing African women have been pioneering new financial models for a very long time. We don't have the proper institutions. We don't have our hands into those critical institutions. These women are far more networked. They have far more social capital than we do. They can go to the Guardian or Huffington Post and get these stories out better than we can. So. I don't know, I'm being really honest. It's something that really pains me and I really want to figure this out. So if anybody has an answer to this about how we can start bringing this kind of knowledge from our elders and this kind of knowledge has existed for a very long time, because we are very entrepreneurial people. And that's what gets me about Somalis. We're very entrepreneurial people. We should be the most wealthiest people in the world. And it's in our blood as Africans too. Like, the richest man in the world was a black Muslim man. It wasn't a Rockefeller. It wasn't any of these big people, or even like Rothschilds, or people who have trillions of dollars of wealth. The people who were the wealthiest in the world were black people, black Muslims. And I'm constantly thinking about, like, part of being an entrepreneur is that you live in a lot of pain. You suffer a lot, and I'm always suffering, and everyone here in some capacity who is doing really great work for our community is suffering. It's an intellectual suffering about the progress that we want to make for our communities, and this frustration that we don't know how to actually do it. So I want to engage in a conversation with anyone who does have ideas. I'd love to speak to you more as well. If you do have ideas about how to bridge this, I'm sure that you have way more knowledge than I do. Thank you.
Thank you. So this concludes our panel discussion. Can everyone just give a round of applause again to all our panelists? Thank you very much for really, enriching the conversation. I mean, it's
Soda,